Did you skip your morning coffee today just because of a blood test? Or maybe you skipped water altogether, thinking you were doing the right thing. Well, as a brain doctor, let me tell you something shocking. 1 or 2 small mistakes before a blood test, especially after the age of 60, can quietly raise your blood pressure, thicken your blood, and in worst cases, trigger a stroke. Yes, I know. Blood tests are supposed to be safe. Routine? No big deal, right? But here's the truth. Most doctors don't say out loud. For older adults, especially those with delicate blood vessels and a nervous system that's a bit less responsive, getting it wrong before a blood draw isn't just uncomfortable. It can be dangerous. And you know what's even more worrying? Most people over 60 unknowingly make at least 3 of the 10 critical mistakes I'm about to share. Not just once, but every single time they go for a blood test. That's why you need to watch this entire video. Because the risks aren't in the needle. They're in what you do before the nurse even walks in the room. Stick with me, and I'll show you how to protect your brain, your heart, and maybe even your life. Starting from your next blood test. If you've ever felt dizzy, tired, or a little off after getting your blood drawn, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, hit 0. And don't forget to subscribe for more life-saving tips. Now let's talk about what skipping a simple glass of water could be doing to your brain. Let's start with the one mistake that sounds harmless, but can quietly lead to trouble. Not drinking any water before your blood test. You see, many people think fasting means don't eat or drink anything, so they skip not just breakfast, but water too. That's a big problem, especially for anyone over 60. When you're even slightly dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker. It flows more slowly, and your heart has to work harder to push it through. That alone can make your blood pressure spike right before the test. But what's even more dangerous? Thickened blood has a harder time reaching your brain. That's when people start feeling lightheaded, dizzy, or worse, experience a mini stroke called a TIA, transient ischemic attack. It can happen without warning, especially when your vessels are already sensitive due to age. A 2022 study from the Journal of Vascular Health showed that seniors who fasted without proper hydration were nearly twice as likely to experience abnormal blood pressure swings during routine morning exams. And you know those fainting episodes some folks have after a blood draw? Often, it's not the needle, it's the dehydration. So here's a simple habit to keep you safer. About 1 to 2 hours before your blood test, drink an 8-ounce glass of water. Not too much, not too little. Just enough to help your blood flow easily, protect your brain, and keep your numbers accurate. And speaking of what you put into your body before a test, let's talk about something salty you might have eaten last night without realizing the risk. Now, let's talk about what you had for dinner last night. Specifically, how much salt was on your plate. Maybe it was a warm bowl of canned soup, or a quick bite of instant noodles. You thought, it's just one meal. The test is tomorrow morning. No big deal. But here's what actually happens. High-sodium meals, especially late in the evening, can push your blood pressure up while you sleep. And since blood pressure naturally rises in the early morning hours, that salty dinner acts like a double whammy. It sends your pressure soaring just when you're headed to the clinic. Now think about this. Your arteries aren't what they used to be. As we age, they stiffen. They don't expand and contract like they did in our 30s. So when the pressure spikes, there's nowhere for it to go. That puts direct strain on your brain, especially those tiny blood vessels deep inside. The American Journal of Hypertension published a study showing that in older adults, late-night salty meals increase the risk of early morning strokes by nearly 35%. And that's before the needle even touches your skin. Plus, if you're dehydrated from fasting. Salt pulls even more water out of your cells, thickening your blood further and throwing off your electrolyte balance. So, what can you do? The night before your test, go light on the salt. Avoid packaged or processed foods. No salty chips, no soy sauce dips, no deli meats. Stick to home-cooked meals with minimal seasoning. Your brain and your heart will thank you. Now, while we're talking about test prep, there's another mistake that's just as risky, especially if you're taking medications for your heart. Let's look at that next. Let's say you've got a blood test coming up and you're wondering, should I take my morning meds? So, you skip your blood pressure pill, or that little tablet that thins your blood. Stop right there. Unless your doctor specifically told you to skip a dose, never assume it's okay to stop your medication before a test, especially heart or blood pressure meds. Missing even one dose can cause a rebound effect. Your blood pressure might shoot up unpredictably, or your blood could suddenly become more prone to clotting. And for older adults, that's no small thing. Take, for example, a 2021 study from the Cleveland Clinic. They found that patients over 60 who paused their antihypertensive medications without medical advice had a 42% higher chance of experiencing abnormal spikes in systolic blood pressure during routine tests. And in some cases, it triggered emergency care within hours. The same goes for blood thinners. Skipping them could increase the risk of a stroke from sudden clot formation, especially during stress, dehydration, or fasting. Now, I get it. Sometimes we worry that meds might interfere with blood test results. But here's the truth. If a medication could affect your lab values, your doctor will tell you exactly how to manage it ahead of time. Guesswork is dangerous. So before your next test, check with your physician. Ask clearly, should I take my morning pills before the blood draw? It's a 5-minute conversation that could save your life. Next up, let's talk about something a lot of people think they're doing right, but it actually puts your brain at risk. Fasting longer than you need to. Many folks think, if 8 hours is good, then 14 must be better. So they stop eating after lunch the day before, skip dinner, skip breakfast, and show up to the lab running on fumes. The problem? When you fast longer than 12 hours, especially without proper hydration, your blood sugar drops too low. And that's not just about feeling weak or hungry. Low blood sugar can affect your brain, your balance, and your blood pressure. It can make you faint before you even sit down for the test. Older adults are especially sensitive to this. A study from Johns Hopkins in 2020 followed patients over 65 who fasted more than 13 hours before blood tests. Nearly 1 in 5 experienced symptoms like dizziness, blurry vision, and in some cases, brief loss of consciousness before or right after their blood draw. And these weren't folks with major health problems. These were everyday seniors trying to do it right. So here's the smarter approach. Unless your doctor says otherwise, stick to a 10 to 12 hour fast. No longer. If your test is at 8 a.m., have a light dinner around 7 or 8 p.m. the night before. That's enough time for accurate results without pushing your body into a danger zone. Oh, and don't forget to drink that glass of water. Coming up next, let's talk about a morning habit that feels harmless but could be sending your heart into overdrive before your blood test even begins. For decades, it's been part of our routine, especially before heading out for something like a blood test. It wakes us up, gives us focus, and frankly, it feels like a hug in a cup. But here's the catch. Caffeine isn't just waking up your brain, it's also waking up your heart, and sometimes pushing it too far. When you drink coffee right before a blood draw, caffeine can cause your heart rate to increase and your blood pressure to spike, especially in people over 60. That can create false readings in your test, or worse, puts stress on blood vessels already vulnerable with age. A clinical review in Hypertension Research in 2021 found that seniors who consumed coffee within 2 hours of testing had, on average, a 12-point higher systolic reading. That's enough to mislead your doctor or mask an actual blood pressure problem. But it's not just about numbers. That rush of caffeine can make you feel jittery, lightheaded, or even anxious right before your blood is drawn. And if you've been fasting too, that coffee hits harder. On an empty stomach, it can trigger a blood sugar crash or rapid heartbeat. Now, what about exercise? You might be surprised at what a morning workout can do before a blood test. So, you're trying to stay healthy. And maybe you like to start your day with a bit of movement. That's great. But if you're heading to a blood test, your morning workout might be doing more harm than good. You see, exercise, especially anything intense like brisk walking, resistance bands, or even heavy gardening, raises your heart rate and blood pressure temporarily. That's normal. But when you're over 60 and your cardiovascular system is already working a little harder to maintain balance, this temporary spike can cause misleading lab results or even push your heart too far, too fast. A 2020 study from the American Geriatric Society followed older adults who exercised within 2 hours before routine blood tests. Results showed significant fluctuations in blood pressure readings, heart rate, and stress hormone levels, enough to distort the interpretation of key biomarkers. Even more concerning, a few participants reported dizziness and chest discomfort during their tests, not because of the needle, but because their body hadn't fully recovered from the workout. If your blood vessels are already a bit stiff and your hydration's off from fasting, exercise can temporarily reduce blood flow to the brain. That's a recipe for lightheadedness, or worse, a TIA. So what should you do? Keep it gentle. Skip the treadmill, the weights, or even that power walk. Instead, stick to light stretching or deep breathing. Save your full workout for after your blood draw. And speaking of circulation, let's talk about something most people never think twice about: what you're wearing. Clothing. Yes, what you wear to your blood test matters more than you think. It's a common habit. Pulling on tight sleeves, snug compression gear, or even a belt that fits a little too well. We want to look neat, especially for a doctor's visit. But tight clothing, especially around the arms or waist, can quietly interfere with your circulation. And for someone over 60, that can cause real problems. When blood flow is restricted, even slightly, your veins don't respond well. It can make it harder for the nurse to find a good vein, which means longer needle time, more pokes, and more discomfort. But even after the blood is drawn, that restricted circulation can lead to unexpected dizziness, numbness, or even fainting. A study in clinical nursing research showed that older adults wearing tight sleeves or waistbands during lab visits were more likely to experience delayed onset dizziness after the draw, especially when combined with fasting or mild dehydration. So, here's your move. Wear something loose and comfortable. Choose a short-sleeve shirt or something with sleeves that roll up easily. Keep belts and waistbands relaxed. You'll feel better, recover faster, and reduce the chance of complications. Next, let's take a look at something you might not even notice. But it has a big impact on your brain and heart: how well you slept the night before. Sleep. It seems simple, but missing even a few hours the night before your blood test can quietly increase your stroke risk. When you don't sleep well, whether from stress, discomfort, or just tossing and turning, your body pays the price the next morning. And for older adults, the effects hit even harder. Poor sleep doesn't just leave you tired, it disrupts the systems that keep your heart and blood vessels in check. Studies show that a lack of sleep causes your sympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for fight or flight, to kick in early. That raises your blood pressure, narrows your blood vessels, and increases heart rate. A study from the Journal of Sleep Research in 2021 found that adults over 60 who slept less than 5 hours before a medical test had significantly higher chances of experiencing vascular spasms during and after blood draws. Even if you don't feel tired, your body is already stressed before you walk into the clinic. And when you pair that with fasting, anxiety, or mild dehydration, your risk of lightheadedness, irregular heartbeat, or TIA rises sharply. So what should you do? The night before your test, wind down early. Turn off screens an hour before bed. Keep the room cool, quiet, and dark. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of rest. Your brain, your heart, and your blood vessels need it. And when the test is done, don't rush off just yet, especially not behind the wheel. Let's talk about why. You've finished your blood test, rolled down your sleeve, and you're ready to head home. But if you haven't eaten yet, and you're planning to drive, hold on just a minute. Driving yourself right after a fasting blood draw might seem harmless, but it's actually one of the riskiest things you can do, especially if you're over 60. Here's why. When you've gone 10 to 12 hours without food, your blood sugar is already low. Add the stress of the blood draw, possible dehydration, and maybe even a poor night's sleep, and your body is in a fragile state. Now imagine you're behind the wheel. A sudden drop in blood sugar can lead to dizziness, blurred vision, delayed reaction times, or even fainting. That's not just dangerous for you, but for everyone on the road. A case study published by the American Journal of Emergency Medicine documented several instances of older adults experiencing fainting spells or confusion within 30 minutes of leaving a clinic, most while driving alone. The common factor? Fasting and skipping post-test recovery. So what's the safer plan? Bring a small snack, something with protein and a bit of healthy carbs, and eat it right after your test. Rest for 10-15 minutes at the clinic if you feel even slightly off. And if possible, ask a friend or family member to drive you home. One more thing. If you feel unwell even hours after the test, don't ignore it. Let's talk about that next. So you've made it through the test, had your snack, and you're back home. But suddenly, you feel a little dizzy, maybe a bit nauseous, or just off. You think, it's probably nothing. I'll just rest. But here's the thing. Those small symptoms could be your body's way of waving a red flag, especially if they happen within hours after a blood draw. For adults over 60, even mild dehydration or a sharp drop in blood sugar can cause a chain reaction in the nervous system. And sometimes that leads to a mini stroke, what doctors call a transient ischemic attack, or TIA. It's a short-lived disruption of blood flow to the brain that may last just minutes, but ignoring it can be a serious mistake. In fact, a 2022 study published in Stroke Journal found that nearly 15% of older adults who reported dizziness or nausea after fasting blood tests were later diagnosed with signs of minor brain ischemia, tiny strokes that often go unnoticed. These symptoms don't always come with pain. No slurred speech, no facial drooping, just a vague discomfort or unsteadiness. That's why they're easy to brush off and easy to miss. So here's the rule. If you feel dizzy, lightheaded, nauseous, or unusually weak after a test, don't just wait it out. Sit down, hydrate, and let someone know. If it doesn't pass quickly, or if it feels worse, call your doctor. Now, let's wrap this up with a few things to keep in mind before your next visit. A blood test might seem like a small thing, But after 60, even simple routines can affect your heart, your brain, and your safety more than you realize. The good news? You have control. Drink just enough water. Don't skip your meds without asking. Sleep well. Eat light the night before. And most of all, listen to your body. These aren't big changes, but they protect you in big ways. If this video gave you even one helpful tip, drop a 1 in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because every small step you take brings you closer to stronger days ahead.